Hello everybody, welcome to another patch notes analysis video. This one is going to be a bit rapid fire. I don't have much time to record because I need to get straight into the editing so that I can get this to you guys before the patch drops, which is not much time. It's 1 o'clock already and the patch probably drops around 7 o'clock my time, so I don't have long. So let's get through this. Starting with the hero changes, we have Queen Wagtoggle. She has been buffed. Her old hero power was give a friendly minion of each type +2 attack. That has been changed to now be +2 attack and +1 health. I think that this is quite a significant buff because the biggest problem with Menagerie is kind of a health thing. It's kind of the biggest problem with every build, but Menagerie and Pirates especially struggle with it. So this is going to be nice to just like get that wide health as well as the attack. That just helps her survive a little bit longer, be a bit more playable. I don't think it's a super strong change. She's not going to skyrocket to tier 1, but it's nice to just like nudge her from the very bottom of tier 4 to maybe somewhere a little bit higher in tier 4. No way she's even making tier 3 off of this, but it brings that lower ceiling of heroes up a little bit, which is nice. The next buff does the same thing. It is also a buff. The Curator has been buffed. His amalgam used to be a 1-1. It is now a 1-2. This will help him a lot more with the early fights. He was pretty much guaranteed to win turn 1 and 2 anyway, but now that is kind of following through to, I guess, turn 3 and 4, a little bit more than before. Lets him get to tier 3 before he's forced to drop the amalgam, which gives him a chance to put some stats and effects on it, which maybe makes it a little bit less of a waste of a board slot. Doesn't mean he has to drop it as sooner. Basically means he actually has a hero power now. Again, that's going to pull him up from tier 4 just a little bit. He was at the top of tier 4 already, so I guess he's going to hit the bottom of tier 3 now. That's nice. Again, bringing up that floor a little bit, bringing heroes a bit closer together. The next change does exactly the same thing. You're going to see a pattern in this patch. Hooktusk. Hooktusk has been reverted back to her old hero power where she got to discover a minion instead of getting a random minion. But, big but, before you're like, oh my god, they're making her tier 1 again, they have made it cost 1. Now, I'm a little bit uncertain about that. I think she was a hero who didn't need a massive change, more she needed a favorable meta. It's a bit difficult to create a favorable meta for her, I guess, but I'm having a hard time telling if this is a buff or a nerf, as 1 cost for her hero power is quite expensive. At that point, it's kind of cheaper to just sell the minion and buy a new minion. So it's a little bit difficult. I do trust that Blizz tested this somewhat and that they have enough data to say 1 gold with Discover is consistent. You can get triples, you can get tokens, it works. It is hard to say though. I feel like low roll games are going to get even more punishing, but they're going to be less common. Either it's going to be a buff that's going to bring her up that tiny little notch that gets her to tier 3, or it's going to be a nerf that really nerfs her into the ground and the bottom of tier 4. I'm not sure. I hope it's going to be a buff. My brain isn't functioning on enough cylinders right now to say that's a buff or that's a nerf. So we're going to have to just wait and see for stats to see what happens there. That's quite a complicated change. I don't think it's a good one, but we'll see what turns out. I'm inclining on the side of this is going to be a nerf, but it could be a buff. I'm not sure. And I feel like Blizzard has more stats than go on. So let's just see what happens. Next up, we have something that is very clearly a buff. It is a Rat King. His hero power now gives a minion of a specific type +2/+2. It used to be +2/+1. I think this lines up very nicely with the Wagtoggle change. Again, buffing Menagerie, this time targeting the attack, which is not really a thing that needed much of a buff, but it is nice to see that happen anyway. Nice to see such a weak hero getting a buff to just like make him a bit more playable. They haven't fixed the key issue with Rat King though, which is his inconsistency of, oh, this turn I get to buff dragons. Here is my tavern, a mech, a murloc, a beast, and an elemental. No dragons? Well, shit. And they haven't really addressed that problem. That is still going to be a big problem and it's still going to be a big weakness. Or maybe you get a dragon and it's a red whelp and you're just like, what do I do with this? So I think it makes him a little bit more playable. He wasn't on the weakest end of tier 4, but he is still going to be in tier 4. There's no way this even escapes him from tier 4. It just makes him a little bit more playable, so that is nice. It's nice to see minions becoming playable. Speaking of playable, next is someone who I don't think very many people have played even on the day he launched, and that is Rakanishu. His old hero power targeted a random friendly minion. He now targets targeted friendly minion. So it's give a friendly minion stats equal to your tavern tier now. So you can click the button and then click on a minion and be like, you get the stats. Kind of Edwin style. So closer to Edwin, still costs 2. I think that is definitely still quite weak, weaker than Edwin even, but it's just a bit nice to be able to say like, you get the stats. So, and it gives, I guess at late game it gives more stats than Edwin typically does, but late game the Edwin's hero power was not great anyway, so I don't know, it buffs him. He's still going to be tier 4, but he's being brought up with the rest of that tier 4 floor, so I guess it's a nice little buff just to bring things closer. There's nothing outlandish that's going to make the game meta totally shift, but again, just pulling up that floor of tier 4 up just a tiny little bit, which we are continuing to do with George the Fallen, although this brings up the floor of this specific minion quite a bit. His hero power, which is give a friendly minion Divine Shield, now costs 2. Down from 3, originally down from 4. At 4, it was impossible to use. At 3, it was awkward to use. At 2, I think it is going to be very usable. I don't think it's going to be crazy strong. I was lurking in Dog's stream yesterday, and he said, oh my god, this is going to be crazy. We're going to have a George meta. Look, I trust his opinion. He's number 19 NA, but I think he's wrong here. I don't think we're going to see a George meta. I don't think he spent enough time looking at it. 2-cost hero powers are awkward. There's nothing you can do about that. It's still less awkward than a 3-cost. I guess when you give something Divine Shield, you're essentially putting another minion on the board, so it's stronger than buying a minion, stronger than upgrading a minion, so it's worth doing at all points in the game now instead of the end game. Makes them playable, makes them survival, makes them strong, makes them tier 2. Tier 3, if it's not as good as I think it is, it's not going to be tier 1. I've seen people saying it's going to be tier 1. No, it's gonna be tier 1 when you high roll Murlocs, but it's gonna be less consistent than Divine Shield Poisonous Murlocs were with Megasaur, and they were already inconsistent then. Just as bullshit, don't get me wrong, but it's still inconsistent, and people need to remember that consistency is key, and the inconsistency of George getting a build that actually benefits from Divine Shield is not gonna make him tier 1. It's gonna make him tier 2. Let's just say tier 2, and we're gonna be seeing more George in lobbies. We're actually gonna remember what his face looks like, so that's nice. Speaking of remembering what faces look like, Ysera has seen a pretty hectic buff. She used to be, at the start of your turn, add a dragon to Bob's Tavern. It is now Bob always offers an extra dragon when the tavern is refreshed. Before I get into the details of how this works, I just want to say that I quite like the wording of this. It just sounds friendly and fun, and I don't know, Bob's being kind to you rather than lying to your face, so that's nice. Basically, her hero power, which used to happen at the start of every turn, now happens every single roll. So if you roll 3 times in a turn, you get offered 3 new dragons, and this is where I say, sup, how is it going? Consistency. You guys know me, I preach consistency 24/7. That's what makes a hero strong or weak. We all love our high and low roll heroes, but if you actually want to climb, the consistent heroes are what's important. She used to be a high and low roll hero, mostly a low roll hero tier 4, but this is gonna make her quite strong, I think. I think it's really, really, really strong. She's going to get a lot more triples. Aggro leveling is going to get you really early Calagosses if you can get to 6 in time. Or staying on tier 1s means you literally are going to have an entire board of red whelps. Like, unavoidably. It's just going to happen. So the meme build is better, and the serious build is also more consistent. Everything's just a little bit better. I think this is going to make Ysera possibly a tier 1, but more likely a high tier 2. Big bolster from tier 4. Not going to be meta shifting once again. Nothing so far this patch has been meta shifting, so that's quite nice. It's just nice to see some things go into the tier 2 where they were in tier 4, and I don't think we're going to be seeing new tier 4s to fill the gap. There might be heroes that perform relatively worse but aren't performing overall worse, so it just brings everything squishes down that gap between the heroes nicely, and I think that is quite nice to see. Continuing with this squish, we have Akazamzarak being buffed. His hero power now costs 1, and effigy has been removed from the pool. For the effect that effigy gives, there are now 7 secrets in the pool. There were 8. This is going to make it more consistent that you can find your specific secrets that you want. Effigy was kind of one of the stronger secrets. It would have been nicer to see something like Snake Trap removed, but Effigy was also a bit of a weird one because it focused on minion costs, and I don't think people like me who just play Battlegrounds remember what minions cost anymore. I'm trying to think about it. What minions are even in Standard? I think Micro Mummy is like a 1 cost in Standard, so I know that much. It's a 1 cost, right, Mir? She says she thinks so. She actually plays Constructed, so she would know. That's nice, gonna make it more consistent. You'll find your ice blocks more often. You'll survive more often. You might even be finding 2 ice blocks a game now. But on top of that, to help you find 2 ice blocks a game, the cost has obviously been reduced by 1 to 1. As I say, 2 cost hero powers are really awkward. 1 cost hero powers are that sweet spot. 0 cost hero powers are my favorites, but 1 cost hero powers are really usable. There are so many turns where you just have 1 gold left and it's like, do I roll? probably roll. There's nothing else to do. When you got a 1-cost hero power, oh, there's something else to do. Then you just have to weigh up if that's better or worse than a roll. Most of the time it's better than a roll, at least when it's a well-balanced hero power, like Akazamzarak. He's been tier 2 before, and I think that is going to do exactly the same thing and bring him back up to his once glorious tier 2 state. Definitely he is going to be very playable, and again, squishing down that tier 4, tier 1 difference. Very nice. And I know I've been rattling on about hero changes for a while now because it's been quite a few, but there are still a few more. The next one is another nice big one. Our meme boy Galakrond has been buffed. He is still our meme boy, but his hero power no longer freezes. Wait for it, that's not just a nerf. It now costs 0 instead of 1, which means that without fail, you can do it every turn. You can get a tier 2 on turn 1. That is really good. You can get a tier 3 on turn 3. That is really good. You can get a tier 6 on turn 8. That is really good. So for the people who aren't going for meme plays, Galakrond seems actually playable now. I don't think he's going to be super strong. For us meme players who try to see how many tier 6s we can get while we're still at tier 1, I think it's going to make it a lot easier to do that. The loss of the freeze is a bit of a pain in the ass, but the 0 cost means we can actually live to see our tier 6, which is very nice. I think it's going to make him more consistent, make him a bit better. Definitely now putting him in the place of being a better Malagos. Kind of don't see why Malagos is still in the pool with this being the case, because they are kind of just the same thing, but Galakrond is better. Malagos is high tier 4 at the moment, so if we take that into consideration, I think we can see Galakrond getting into that nice tier 3 slot, maybe tier 2, but I don't know if this the random nature of this hero power is really gonna make it a full-on tier 2 potential just due to lack of consistency. I think we're gonna have fun with him. I think he's playable and he's gonna be fun now, and that is nice. The next change is a bit of a smaller one, I think, but a bit of a more unclear one because the wording is a bit vague. We're gonna have to see how it affects things, and we are dealing with Tess Greymane. I'm going to read it out to you and you're going to say, but this sounds clear as hell. Moo had a thought earlier while she was reviewing the script that really makes me unsure if she's going to be tier 1 or still tier 4 off of this. So we're going to see what happens. But it used to be that she refreshes Bob's Tavern with minions from your last opponent's warband, and now it's refresh Bob's Tavern with your last opponent's warband. Now, in theory, the way my head works around this is that even if you're at tier 3, so you're only getting offered 5 minions in Bob's Tavern, you will get offered the full 7 minions on your opponent's board when you roll. That means you're definitely getting the minion that you want to steal. That sounds decent. That sounds like it can pull her up to tier 3. What we were uncertain of with that wording is, with your last opponent's warband, kind of makes it sound like it might keep buffs. If it does keep buffs, I think this is a bit broken actually, because this gives you a perfect platform to transition at any point in the game. And if you're not transitioning, if there's one person that's high rolling your build and you land up against them once, you're the person high rolling that build now. You can freeze on their board for 2 turns and just get all the stuff. It's still not going to be a hero power that you use very often, but when you can see, oh, my opponent had a Divine Shield Poisonous Amalgadon. I wonder what would happen if I took that. I guess it's, what was the hero called? Bob's Burgles? I guess she's burgling a bit better now. If it does what Moo says, it's gonna be pretty crazy strong. I think she can break into tier 1, probably more likely tier 2, but it's really interesting. If it does what I think it's gonna do, which is that it doesn't keep buffs, she's tier 3, low tier 3 at that, but we might actually pick her from time to time rather than being like, oh, Tess? No. Next up, and I'm sorry that I don't have graphics for these last few ones. I guess I'll have the text, but Blizzard just didn't put out graphics for these. I guess it's not a visible change on the hero power button. That's why they didn't do that. Elise Starseekr, her recruitment map now costs 2. I think that's very nice. That costing 3 was very awkward most of the time just because you could see what you were getting. It was better to just buy something from the Bob's Tavern. Sometimes it was worth using the hero power if you were going to like a really influential tier, like going to tier 5, going to tier 2, or going to tier 6, but it was just not worth using very often, and I often just was playing the game with 2 or 3 maps in my hand if I ever even picked Elise. At 2 cost, and it's definitely stronger than buying a minion. I would say, just on a basis of gold value, this puts her on par with Omu. On a basis of how strong the hero power is on its own, I don't think it's that strong. I think it brings her up to tier 3, maybe tier 2, probably actually tier 2, definitely at least tier 3. It basically means that when you level up, when you're going to tier 2, you have a tier 2 minion. Your opponents have a tier 1 minion. We're going to tier 3, you have a tier 3 minion. Your opponents are just picking up tier 2 minions. So basically, on the turns that you tier up, it's almost guaranteeing you a win. Almost. Not necessarily, definitely, but almost. And I think that's nice. Gives her a bit more survivability, gives her guidance. She can find a 5 maybe a little bit easier than other people can because she doesn't need a triple, she just needs to level. I think that just gives her direction, makes her an easy hero to play, makes her strong especially at low tiers, and at high tiers makes her playable. The next change is that Lord Barov now refunds your 1 gold on ties. I don't think this has major balance ramifications. It will buff him a little bit, obviously. Maybe you can break him out of tier 4. I don't think it will break him out of tier 4. I think it'll just bring him to the top of tier 4. But it just makes him a little bit less frustrating to play and just keep squishing down that floor. And I really like it. The last change, and you guys know me, you guys know I love this change, is that Nefarian has been removed from the Battlegrounds hero pool. He definitely needed either a rework or a very major buff that I don't think would have been possible. I guess they could have made it cost 0 and that might have squished him as much as these other people got squished. But I think removing him from the pool makes a lot of sense. I think removing Malagos from the pool also makes sense, and they didn't do that. Hopefully they'll do that next patch. They've been kind of doing one hero gone most patches lately, so I think they're listening, they're reducing the size of the hero pool. So Nefarian's gone now. I think we'll see Malagos gone next. I really like that. Thank you, Blizzard. That is one less shit option to bloat up the options for people who don't have Tavern Pass and just make people roll their eyes when they do have Tavern Pass. Next up, we have a nice long list of minion changes. Not quite as long as the list of hero changes, but just as interesting. Starting with something that's going to make everyone have a sigh of relief. Elementals are being added to the rotating pool, which means they will not be in every game. They will be in some games, but there will be games where Elementals are one of the tribes that isn't in there. It's the most meta-shifting change of this patch, and it's just nice to just have a breather from Elementals. We've kind of been seeing them winning every single game, and they didn't necessarily need a nerf. They were in a balanced spot. Dragons are actually better. This is just going to see us, sigh of relief. They're not there every single game. It got a little bit tiring towards the end. I think it's good timing for Blizzard to do this. But now let's get into the places where minions have actually been changed. Starting with a change to the tier 1 pool, which is that Wrathweaver has been buffed. He is now a 1-3. He was a 1-1. 1-1 meant that if you got him first turn and were like, oh, I'm going to go demons, you were guaranteed a hit turn 1. Guaranteed. And that kind of sucked, because when you're demons, your health pool is really important, especially when you're using a Wrathweaver. So it's just quite nice to see that 1-3. That's enough stats to win occasional fights. This lines up with the stat lines of a lot of tier 1 minions, and it just means you're going to tie rounds instead of losing. I don't think you're going to win any rounds unless you're against AFK, but being able to tie rounds is just a little bit better than being guaranteed to lose your rounds every single time. This means that demons are actually going to be a lot more viable, a lot more consistent, a lot better. Still going to be a turn 1 commitment, still not a very fun build, I don't think personally. But for those of you who do really like demons, enjoy being able to actually play them from turn 1 the way they're intended to. Next up, we have Yo-Ho-Ogre, who starts a little trend of pirate buffs, which everyone's been asking for. It was nice to see. I think there were 2 in the last patch, but relatively inconsequential. This patch, we have some more consequential ones. Yo-Ho-Ogre being the first, he has been moved from tier 3 to tier 2. To make up for that, he has lost some stats. He is now a 2-5 instead of a 2-8. I think that's a very reasonable stat line. He's gone from being one of the less statted tier 3 minions to now being one of the most statted tier 2 minions. I think these stats make him a lot more playable, a lot more pick-upable, especially when you find him as early as possible. This is a nice buff to patches as well, because you can find more pirates more often, and for people who just like to force pirates, here's your chance to actually find them in the early game and be able to actually do what you want to with your build, especially with some of the buffs coming up, still including next thing, which is Southsea Strongarm has seen the same treatment of being moved from tier 4 now to tier 3. Again, you're going to be able to find her more. This is especially important with Southsea Strongarm, because you would pick up a Hogger and then be like, I'm going to cycle a million pirates, and then be like, I'm going to get a Southsea Strongarm, and I'm going to get a million stats, and then you roll for literally 50 gold because you've gone infinite and you don't find one. And it's just like, but why? So being at tier 3, I think, is a lot more comfortable. I think this is the biggest change to pirates this patch. I think it's going to mean you can stack up a lot of stats, being able to find more of her. She's worth playing every time you find her when you're going pirates, especially considering you have also on tier 3 free dealing gambler, who you can just buy, sell. That's 1-1 in stats. Buy, sell another one. That's 1-1 in stats every single time, considering that you're going to be able to reliably find strong arms now. Not necessarily every turn, but with the fact that some pirates are free, especially if you pick up a Garr, it's going to be easier to find her. It's going to mean you can actually stack stats on your pirates. This is more of a buff to late game pirates, but also helps you survive in the early game. Really nice. I like this, Blizzard. And next, also really nice, I like this, Blizzard. Ripsnarl Captain has had a buff of 1-1 in stats. So he's gone from being a 3-4 to being a 4-5. This doesn't sound like big because it's 1-1 in stats, but that is exactly what he needed to not be sniped by red whelps quite as often, because in the early game you generally only have 3 or 4 dragons. Also, he's not going to be sniped by crackling cyclone unless your opponents put a buff on him. Mostly first attackers basically have 4 attack at the point in the game where you can pick up a Ripsnarl Captain. So being able to be like, oh, this actually survives 4 attack it's big. It's a breakpoint. It's a breakpoint being broken. So I think that's going to be really nice. It's going to mean you actually get to take advantage of your stat buffs even if you don't take the initiative. Obviously, it's still better that you do take the initiative, but not taking the initiative is kind of less self-destroying now that he's less likely to get instantly sniped. And I think that's just very nice, especially considering he's one of the strongest, most core pirates. So just him being more survivable as your core of your build is really nice. The final change to pirates brings us all the way up to tier 6, and this is where we're seeing Great Admiral Eliza getting a buff. She used to be whenever friendly pirate attacks give all friendly minions +1/+1, she now gives them +2/+1. I think this is a stupid change. Eliza was never the problem with pirates. She was actually one of the strongest pirates, but also pirates' weakness is definitely their health. You can stack so much attack on a pirate with a Bloodsail Cannoneer and a Bran to an extent that you were killing your entire opponent's board, but you were dying because he had 1 divine shield. So the fact that this doesn't help with health really makes it actually not a buff and like a not really consequential change, but she's not really a minion that needed a change, so I guess it's alright. Again, just maybe gonna make pirates just a little bit better, a little bit less soul crushing to go, and just nice little buff to patches, nice little buff to people who force pirates all the time, so that's nice. Again, just actually squishing down that hero gap a little bit, and the minion gap a little bit, by bringing pirates up, bringing pirate-orientated heroes up as well. So, good work, Blizzard. Yo, I'm so hot. I had to turn the fucking fan off for this recording, and I'm just here dying while I'm recording this video, but I'm making sure I'm getting you guys the patch notes analysis. So let's move on from the pirates that are getting me all hot and bothered and move on to some other random minions that got buffed. We're jumping all the way back down to tier 4 where Iron Sensei got buffed because he's not tier 4 anymore. He's now a tier 3 minion. No changes to the stats there. I think that's a nice little change because the problem with mechs, especially in the mid game, was just that they lacked stats a little bit. Stuff like elementals and dragons just outscaled them every single time. Even pirates outscaled them in the mid game, and it was just like a little bit sucky. Like mechs were always strong, but they could never hold up beyond getting you to 4th place, and I think this change is going to get you enough stats to maybe get 2nd place now, which is nice, and maybe 1st place, I don't know, maybe. Just finding more senseis is nice. Triple sensei is a pretty good minion, 2 senseis is pretty good, 1 sensei even is half decent, so being able to get those a little bit easier, a little bit sooner, definitely going to make a big change. You generally find them a bit late, like a bit late for Iron Sensei is turn 9. Turn 9's when you're finding your tier 4 minions, I guess. Like, I guess you can find them earlier than that, but like, you kind of have to get lucky. So, yeah, just nice to see that happen. Now he's going to be found a lot earlier, and he's going to be able to buff. He's going to be able to buff your Deflector bot from a lot earlier in the game, get a lot more stats, make it a lot more influential, just make mechs just a little bit nicer to play. Might be a bit strong of a change now that I think about it, but we'll have to see how that plays out. I don't think it's going to make mechs broken. They were a bit weak in the last patch, so it's just nice to see them be a bit more playable, a bit nicer, a bit more fun. Next up, we have a change that I wish was the same treatment as Iron Sensei. It's unfortunately not. Lightfang is going from being, at the end of your turn, give a friendly minion from each minion type +2/+1 to give a friendly minion from each minion type +2/+2. I generally think +2/+2 sounds cleaner than +2/+1, and like I said earlier, Menagerie's problem is health, but being at 5, Lightfang's still always going to be a little bit late, and it's still always outscaled by the combination of Bran and Jug, so I don't think it's enough of a change, but it is nice. It's going to make Lightfang more playable. It's going to make Menagerie in general more playable, but I think we're still going to be, when people play Menagerie, seeing them going A3 type Menagerie with a Bran and a Jug, especially considering Amalgadon. It's really important to get a Bran. Yeah, I don't think Lightfang's in a comfortable position. I think the change needed to be moving her to tier 4, but I guess this makes her like marginally more playable. So I guess a nice change, Blizzard, but could have been better. Next up, if you hated elementals beyond just the fact that they needed to be in the rotating pool, don't worry, Blizzard has nerfed them into the ground by nerfing a gentle Djinni quite heavily. Your ability to discover elementals is going to be quite heavily impaired. Gentle Djinni has been moved to tier 6. No stat change at all. Basically, Blizzard decided to take Gentle Djinni, revert the change where they moved them to tier 5, and now make them tier 6 again, but without the stats that they had before, and they weren't really playable at tier 6. Now they're even less playable at tier 6 because they've got even less stats. Obviously they were overpowered as all hell at tier 5, we all know that, but now they're totally unplayable, and I think Blizzard needs to find something like a little bit smarter to do with Djinni. I don't know what would be smarter. Maybe get rid of the part where it summons the elemental, maybe it just adds it to hand. It's a bit of a difficult one. I think Djinni is actually best nerfed by nerfing other elementals, making that free minion in your hand less influential, by maybe making Crackling Cyclone a 3/1, or making some kind of change like that, maybe making tier 6 is not discoverable by it unless you're at tier 6. I think there's things that they could have done better. Djinni is now going to be totally useless unless you high roll a Xeris, and that just sucks a little bit. I think this puts elementals in a really awkward place, and it might be too much of a nerf, might not, I don't know. But to make sure it's too much of a nerf, Blizzard decided to get ahead of themselves and also nerf Lieutenant Garr from being an 8/1 to a 5/1. It was already one of the less playable elementals, Blizzard. Sure, it can get a lot of health, but your opponent can get Divine Shield and Poisonous, so that doesn't even matter. Now it's even easier to outscale it with a Molten Rock, which you can pick up earlier. I don't know, the 8 attack was its one redeeming quality, and now you've made it 5 attack. It's like, rest in peace, Garr. Lieutenant, more like Peasant Garr. God. Yeah, that's not great. That's not a great change. I guess it's nice for low tier players who don't really know how to scam people out of a winning build with a Selfless Hero and a Poisonous. It's a bit of an annoying change. It feels like it's removing anyone playing Elemental's reasoning to go to tier 6, and to remove that reasoning even more, Lil Rag has also been nerfed. Not a big nerf, he was 6/6 in stats, now he's 4/4 in base stats. But literally, rest in peace going to tier 6 as elementals. There's 3 elementals at tier 6, so it bloats up the pool for everyone else. But it's also frustrating because elemental players aren't going to want to go to tier 6 anymore. Because, sure, Djinni and Rag are both very influential, but getting them at tier 6 is just always too late. Moving Rag to tier 6 nerfed him into the ground. Djinni originally being at tier 6 had Djinni being totally crap. Now he's just going to be extra totally crap because he doesn't even have the stats to back it up. Like, I don't know, I don't love this. I almost actually forgot about this one. I started rattling off my conclusion after I talked about Lil Rag, but I just remembered there was one more minion change which I think everyone wanted to see. Although I don't like the way Blizzard handled it, is Amalgadon has been nerfed. Now I'm gonna read you the wording. I really hate this wording, so after I've read you the wording, I'm gonna explain it. The old wording is battle cry for each different minion type you have, adapt randomly. And is now battle cry for each different minion type you have among other minions, adapt randomly. That wording is confusing as all heck. For any less committed players who don't play as much, who don't read patch notes, who don't watch videos like this, that's really confusing. I spend the time analyzing patch notes. It took me a moment to figure out what the hell Blizzard was saying with that. I imagine it took you guys a moment as well. Subscribe so that when Blizzard does weird wording like this in future, I have you guys covered, because I'm gonna tell you guys how to work your heads around that now. Basically, TLDR, Amalgadon doesn't count himself anymore. He looks at all the other minions on the board, he doesn't look at himself. So if you have a board full of Murlocs, he's going to adapt once, not twice, because he doesn't see like, oh, there's the minion type all here as well, because I'm minion type all. So that one adapt versus 2 adapts on a single type board is quite a nerf. On a Menagerie board, it's going to make no difference, but that's nice. Menagerie really needs a buff. I think it makes Amalgadon a lot more balanced, a lot less frustrating. I think we're gonna see him see a lot less play, because it's going to be a lot harder on a single minion type board without a brand to see Divine Shield Poisonous at the same time. It's no longer worth just picking up an Amalgadon, playing it, seeing if you high roll and then chucking it. Now it's kind of like, but I can't even high roll it because I only got one minion type and I don't have a brand. So yeah, that's a little bit of a frustrating change for Amalgadon lovers, but I don't think there were very many Amalgadon lovers out there. I think there were mostly Amalgadon haters of, oh my god, nerf this guy, he is overpowered. Yeah, this does rip those Divine Shield Poisonous high rolls and just makes things feel a little bit less crazy, makes it feel like you don't have to have this one minion on your board. He's still really strong. If you get the right adapts, he's still just as strong as he used to be. It's just a nerf to the consistency, makes him a little bit less worth picking up. I guess buffs the other tier 6 minions indirectly, but nerfs the entirety of tier 6 as a whole. It was already sometimes a bit difficult to go to tier 6 for anything other than an Amalgadon, so I don't know, that's a little bit awkward. but I do think this is the best buff to Menagerie the whole patch, even though it's the only buff to Menagerie that didn't address Menagerie entirely. But I think this makes a Menagerie a lot more playable because they're going to be the only ones that actually get to take advantage of Amalgadon now. I feel like you at least need a Brano or 3-type Menagerie to be like, oh, maybe I'll actually get my Divine Shield Poisonous now. That's quite a nice change. Just fix the wording, Blizzard. I'm going to try and think about this. I'm going to rack my brains. I didn't do this when I was writing the script, but is there anything that Blizzard could, like, do better to make it more understandable? I guess for each different minion type you have, adapt randomly, not counting this. It's difficult to word it. I get that, Blizzard. It's just also just really confusing. Really, really confusing for anyone that doesn't have the dedication to play as much of this game and spend as much time just reading the patch notes as I do. I've been analyzing these patch notes pretty much since they came out last night. Like, it took me a while to figure that out. I feel like it took everyone a while to figure it out. Overall though, now it's time to get into the conclusion of the video where I tell you guys that other than Elementals entering rotation, we're not going to see anything particularly meta shifting. I do think the patch is going to feel a little bit more fresh and fair. A lot of tier 4 heroes has been brought up. A lot of weaker builds like Menagerie and Pirates being brought up a little bit. Stronger builds like Elementals being brought down a little bit. I think Dragons might be a little bit overpowered, but I also think the meta is going to feel fresher and fairer because it's going to be easier for everyone to do the strong builds because all the weak heroes got buffed. It's going to make it less frustrating to not have a Tavern Pass. Tavern Pass owners are still gonna be happy though. Like, there's nothing particularly bad about this patch. I quite like it. I think we're headed to a nice meta of just more balanced heroes. I might be wrong. One of the heroes might just be a blowout and be tier 1. I hope it's not George. I hope I'm right about saying there's no way George is gonna be tier 1. We're gonna see what happens. I am worried that Dragons are gonna be a bit of a blowout build. Beasts are also still going to be strong. Neither of those were addressed. They were quite strong, on par with Elementals. I don't know why they addressed the one but not the other. I guess they more wanted to address the frustration than the actual balance to a certain extent, because no one's been frustrated with beasts and no one's been frustrated with dragons. It's just Elementals have been a little bit unfun to play against, and Hearthstone after all is a fun game first and a competitive game second, so I like that Blizzard is prioritizing our level of fun. And for those who are competitive, I don't think the meta is going to be soul crushing. Obviously Reddit's going to be a little bit salty, but that's what Reddit does. I think they're going to complain a lot about dragons. There is going to be a dragon meta, but dragons are a harder build to compete for and a not very consistent build, and they're not as strong as Divine Shield Poisonous Murlocs are, so I think we can all be happy with this meta. I really, really like this. I think if you're considering getting into the game and haven't done it yet and you watch these videos, I don't know why you watch patch analysis videos if you haven't gotten to the game, but I think it's a good time to start playing. I think it's very noob friendly at the moment. They've made a lot of changes that make it harder to pick wrong heroes, so if you don't have your deck tracking installed, you can be like, oh, I'm going to pick this hero. Oh, it's actually weaker than this hero. But that's fine because it's not overwhelmingly weaker than this hero. So I like that instead of nerfing the top end, they've buffed the lower end. The top end is quite balanced at the moment. There's just a bit too much low end. So Blizzard, good work. Thank you very much for that. I'll see all of you guys in the Battlegrounds. Also, don't forget to check out my Twitch streams if you guys want to see how these changes play out. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays I stream Battlegrounds. Also World of Warcraft on Sundays, so be sure to check out my stream. Follow me on Twitter for my takes on the meta as it rolls through. I will keep you guys updated on what I was wrong, right, or whatever about. So keep having a look out for that. And until the next patch, or actually my gameplay videos that I've been making lately, check out my latest one over here. It's probably pretty good. Or check out like my whole playlist over there. Overall, I think it's going to be good. I just realized by pointing, I'm not going to be able to put on my usual end card. Maybe I will now because I'm not pointing anymore. We'll see how it goes. Maybe I made a stupid mistake there. But thank you for watching, guys. Like, comment, subscribe, all the stuffs, and I'll check you all in the next one.